You're listening to The Re-Engineered You. This is a podcast about self-empowerment and all the myths, lies, and misconceptions we tell ourselves. Then we use science and history to bust those myths and re-engineer a better you. I'm your host, Todd Laments, the extrovert.
And I'm the writer, researcher, and introvert, Joe Anthony, whose job it is to dig through the outer layer of no-duh on the internet. So today is kind of a special episode. We got a suggestion by my girlfriend that we should look into misconceptions, because we start every episode with, we bust myths about self-improvement, self-awareness, and just general life and what can help us. And there is actually a list online of common misconceptions, and they span subjects between sports, food, history, human health, everything.
This is a lot different, too, because we're busting so many myths. We usually stick to 2 or 3, and they're a little bit more, academic, or what do you say, Joe?
Yeah, usually each myth is tailored to the narrative we're giving. So, they will be 3 big myths about one subject. But today, we're, instead of, having apples with our meal, this is just applesauce. We are just going to go through and mash up these myths and just have fun with it, basically.
And what's funny about these is a lot of these are things that I swear I'd bet my life on before I started the research for this show, that these things were true.
Exactly.
I've taught them to younger people as the elder of my tribe.
I've literally quoted some of these, and it is painful to look at how many that I have. As a researcher, I pride myself on being able to tell people good information that is interesting. So many of these convince me that I'm horrible at my job and I need to stop immediately. So we're gonna re-educate ourselves today, hopefully with a bunch of these, and we're gonna be counting down a top 10. Todd picked out his top 10 favorite misconceptions, and I picked out mine too. And we're gonna put the whole list up on our notes. And it is, if you want to kill an evening and just feel very, very dumb, but also enlighten yourself at the same time, go through this list. It's a lot of fun.
It was tough making a top 10, Joe. There were so many interesting things, but I think I figured it out. I tried to aim them at ones I didn't think that you would care about, but that's not really very hard. Our brains are so opposite anyway, so let's see if we actually landed on the same one. I bet maybe 1 out of 10. What do you bet?
I'm gonna say 3. I'll go high, even though there are so many. I'll defy statistics and say that we're going to land on about 3 of these.
Well, I'm going to go first, and I'm going to go with number 1.
Okay.
This is my 10th myth, not my number 1 myth. So this is my 10th myth that I didn't know.
Number 10.
And what it states is legal tender laws in the United States don't require that a business, an organization, a person must accept cash for payment. It just has to be some kind of valid payment to the creditor. Now, what that means to me is you should be able to go into the mall and work to pay for that shirt you want to buy. You don't have to give them a credit card or cash. And I didn't know that, back in the olden days, right, Joe?
Okay, so they'll accept, they can accept any form of payment. Is that why the old, I guess, fable or exchange rate of, if you can't pay for the meal, they'll have you washing dishes, that is a legit currency they can request of you?
According to the law, yes.
That's a pretty good one. It kind of shines some light on, what you're allowed to give as payment, or, what they can. I want that to be enacted. I want someone to read this list and be a bar owner, and next time somebody comes in, just be like, that'll be 19 bottle caps, please. And it's, instead of money.
I was thinking you trade your groceries in or something.
Right.
Your firstborn, I was even thinking. Where does this stop?
Right.
I can eat here for free, but I'm going to give you my kid to work here forever.
Right. I'm going to go with the first one I want to talk about is my number 10 is a physics misconception. The idea that black holes have a negative mass, or that they suck things in. A black hole can pull a substantial amount of matter around it, but it's already doing that. So to dumb this down for myself, really, black holes and objects can have the same mass. It's not like a vacuum in space. Like nobody put a Hoover out in space and that's a black hole. It is actually just here's a bunch of mass and it's going to have the same gravity as everything. In fact, the black holes are at the center of most galaxies. Like our galaxy in the last couple of years, we put a telescope's eye on the center of our galaxy and we caught a very brief glimpse of, oh, there's the giant black hole that makes us spin around like a drain. So that for me is it's number 10, but it's also number 1 as far as, galactic mysteries to me. So that was my starter. Is I wanted to go with the densest first.
You went awfully geeky, awfully nerdy, awfully fast, even for you, Joe.
I want to remind everybody who they're listening to.
Just to show how polar opposite we are. My number 9, and his is, of course, about NASA, the black holes, and the galaxy. Mine is about the junk food Twinkies.
I saw this one. Yeah, okay. I'm glad you picked it.
Okay. Now, there's been a misconception and a rumor spread that I have heard and I believe, and who's ever heard this, at the end of the world, the apocalypse, whatever you call it, there are going to be cockroaches and Twinkies are the only things that are going to survive.
Right.
Because they have so much preservatives, so much additives. It's not food. It's certainly not healthy food, and that they can remain for decades. But in actuality, they have a shelf life of about 45 days. So Twinkies are not going to last forever. Twinkies are food.
Now, there is irony there because nobody suspects the cheeseburger from McDonald's to have an incredible shelf life. But if you set a cheeseburger in a jar and a Twinkie in a jar side by side, the cheeseburger will be there. It will. There's video evidence. People have done this. The cheeseburger will be completely the same, unchanged after several years. The Twinkie will be dead after 45 days, apparently. So,
I always think of. I used to always buy those snack packs that they have at Starbucks.
Right.
And my buddy was like, "How can they cut open those apples and for days and weeks have them sitting in a package and then they don't turn brown? What kind of toxic shit do they spray on those things?" They turn it into like a wax museum so it'll last.
Right. Are you sure you guys weren't just eating their display models? They're just like wax. My number 9, I'm going to go with junk food too. This is one where I saw the myth on our list, and I actually have put this in our doc to do as an episode. So anyone listening to this, they're going to hear the episode about this later. Hydrox, have you seen the knockoff of Oreo, the Hydrox cookie?
Oh yeah, for the dollar store.
Yeah. So that came out in like 1908. But the myth is that they are a knockoff of Oreo.
1908? Those have been around that long?
Exactly.
The generic?
Yep. The generic predates the Oreo by at least 4 years, and it outsold Oreo for decades. But the problem is, like,
no shit.
Yeah, the companies that were putting out like detergents and things like that, they made them sound like the Hydrox cookie. Hydrox sound like a detergent. It says so on the list.
Yeah, it sounds terrible. It doesn't sound like something you want to eat. It sounds like something you shouldn't get in your eyes.
Right. So purely by naming, Oreo started out selling Hydrox because Hydrox sounded horrible. And the part we're going to do an episode about, and this is a bonus fact, is they were brothers. This according to my roommate, who is also sort of like a researcher. But he was like, yeah, they were related and they were trolling each other. This was all just like a inside competition. So we are definitely doing an episode about this drama that was happening behind the scenes of these two cookie brands. But yeah, Hydrox is older and the original Oreo.
Interesting. Well, my next one, we're staying on the food one here just for a little bit longer, is spinach has been known to be high in iron and calcium, right? It's a known thing.
Right, that's what gives
raw spinach is the best, right?
That's what gives us Popeye's powers.
That's right, gives Popeye's powers. And the problem with it is raw spinach is supposed to be better for you. I, as a lifelong workouter, I've always thought that you spinach salads and stuff, when you cook it, it cooks out a lot of the nutrients, the calcium and iron. It turns out that calcium or raw spinach contains high levels of oxalates. and that actually blocks the absorptions of iron and calcium. So when it's in your body, it doesn't help you get more of that. It does the exact opposite effect.
Okay, so cooked spinach is the way to go then, is what you're telling me.
Exactly, because so the raw spinach, so you cook the spinach, has a lot lower levels of oxalates, and it's actually better for the digestive.
Okay, well that
it's exact opposite. So it wasn't. That's how I've been eating is raw. So you got to cook it.
that makes me a little bit frustrated. I mean, partly because what a pervasive misconception, and also isn't everything better when you cook it? Like as long as you're not leaching the nutrients, the general rule for humans is you cook something, it unlocks more calories and more nutrients, right?
Absolutely.
That it still doesn't improve the taste for me, by the way. It's spinach is still going to taste like slimy pennies to me, but I'm still going to eat it. So okay, well, my I believe we're on number 8. Mine is a 3-parter, sort of. It's just the Middle Ages period. On this list, and I'm gonna kind of call back to some of my knowledge from reading cracked articles. The idea is that the Middle Ages was the dark period, the dark age. It was ignorance, barbarism, superstition. You know, the church had control over everything. But the whole phrase dark ages, the term itself has been rejected by historians, according to this list. And honestly, it should, because they did take baths. The big misconception is everyone died in their 30s and 40s. That was not true. It's just that infant mortality rate was so high. Basically, having a baby live past the first year was so difficult to do. It skewed the averages all down. So, like, you take the average age of the Middle Ages, it is 30 or 40. But infant mortality rate, factor that in, and it's going to make it seem like everyone's dying young, when honestly, you make it out of your teenage years, you're probably going to make it to, same as us, like 60s, 70s. And they didn't think the world was flat. That's another dumb one. Medieval scholars put out that myth, or the myth was created by the Protestants to argue against the Catholics. So no one in their right scientific mind thought it was a flat earth. We only do that in today's society.
Yeah, I thought that was a well-known thing, though. That's been advertised as everyone thought that, and then it was amazing when they found out it wasn't, right?
Right, yeah. Like, people thought Christopher Columbus's whole voyage was based around a flat earth.
Yeah.
And it's just totally not true. Just everyone knew it was spherical. Everyone widely accepted it. Sometimes maps were drawn in weird ways just because they had limitations on paper and vector and, like, what they could use for tools. But honestly, they knew, and it was just sort of like a dumb argument invented for one church to argue with the other, basically. So that's my big number 8, and that was a long one. I apologize for that, but that was one that stuck out to me.
Well, I'm going to put 2 in there because you just did that. I'm going to get back at you.
Okay.
I need more radio time than you do. Okay. You're the researcher. I'm the voiceover actor.
Okay. We need to get we need to promote the sound.
We
need to promote the dulcet tones of Todd.
Another one. Okay, this is another one here. This is one. Microwaves don't cook food from the inside out. Microwaves don't cause cancer, and they don't reduce the nutritional value of food. They actually preserve it better than conventional baking.
Really?
Didn't you always think that they're just, you don't stand close to the refrigerator, the microwave, you're going to go sterile? That's what we used to say back when they came out. Get away from it.
I've been wearing a lead cup every time I use the microwave for no reason.
And a quick one to pop in there is sign languages aren't not the same worldwide.
Okay.
Each country has its own language, and there's somewhere. This is a broad range. It's from between 138 and 300 different sign language, and that shocked me. I've actually studied American Sign Language, so I knew, but I kind of thought there was one for each continent. I didn't think that there was 300 different languages. So you're a deaf person in Uganda, you run into somebody, you can't communicate with them. It's like, whoa.
That is so weird. I mean, like I was thinking the same as you, that maybe there's like it's separated by country, but why would they have multiples in one country? Is it just like standard language deviation? Like would it be would it would parts of Ireland have like they have a Gaelic inflection in their sign language, like they're signing with an accent, a brogue?
Slanger.
Yeah.
It's looser, it's tighter. The Germans is real tight and precise, and the Americans is kind of sloppy.
Right.
Makes sense, right?
The German words are all very long, like their hands are so busy for like a minute and it's one word. Well, I've got another deep nerdy one for you. This one I did not know, and I should have, because it hits on 2 or 3 of my favorite corners of nerd culture. I have literally told people that George Romero's Night of the Dead invented zombies as a monster, as a trope. But that's not true. And I'm going to put in some extra nerd facts here. Instead, in the movie, they were referred to as ghouls. And what they were doing is like the films later on adopted zombie from Haitian mythology, and what that means from this wiki, and like I'll expand on that myself just from my understanding. There's like have you ever heard of that pufferfish poison? There was in a movie Serpent in the Rainbow, where like they give you pufferfish and it damages your brain in such a way to where like you become a zombie, you become like somebody's servant. You can take basic commands like
absolutely.
A dog, but you can't do anything.
Yeah. It disables you. Yeah.
Yeah, and it used to be supposedly in their mythology that the person doing this, like, it would give them a lot of street cred. Like they would be looked at as a shaman basically because they could zombify somebody. I thought and have told people that George Romero's Night of the Living Dead and all the zombie movies we have came from that mythology. It's not true.
So
I've been lying to people.
Spreading this by not.
Yeah.
You didn't know though.
So Romero himself said the ghouls, the quote-unquote ghouls, were inspired by I Am Legend, which is another of my huge favorites as a book. That book is like a heavy metal album got written into existence. That it is such a cool book. I know everything about that book, and yet I've been telling people it's from the Haitian mythology, not the actual source. And it wasn't until Dawn of the Dead that they were explicitly called zombies. So, like, this probably doesn't matter to non-nerds who don't give a damn about zombies, but, like, for some people, zombies and, like, watching The Walking Dead is their life. So, like, this to me is like saying, you've been spreading lies your whole life. Congratulations for, telling everybody the wrong thing.
Well, I got 2 short ones here. The term 420 for smoking weed.
Oh, yeah.
Synonymous with, at 420 we do this. Well, it was originated that they said it was from the Los Angeles Police Penal Code for busting people for smoking weed. That's where it actually came from. But it turned out that in 1971 in California, San Rafael High School, a bunch of potheads would go out at 420 and smoke. So those very famous stoners in 1971, ahead of their time, started that phrase 420 from one little high school.
Huh. Okay, so have you ever played the game where like you and your friends try to coin a new term and get it like to attach to the language? Like you think to yourself, high fives had to come from somewhere. The word 420 had to come from somewhere.
Right.
Like, why don't we invent one?
Cool's another one.
Yeah.
Cool's been around for a long time.
It's 420 is one where like it shouldn't have caught on. Like that is such an inside niche bit of information. Like this is the time we go smoke. That should have died on the vine as far as language is concerned because it doesn't say anything. Yeah.
Or time changes, but it's hung in there. It's doing better than ever, right?
Right. Hey, how is it that like something awesome like a phrase like electric lettuce didn't work or didn't stick that well, and 420 has? That makes me upset slightly, but it's still good information.
The singer Phil Collins of the group Genesis, you know who he is?
Oh yeah. In the Air Tonight?
Well, there was a hit In the Air Tonight. It was a 1981 hit. And he said that he had watched someone drowning, and he confronted someone in the audience because they let it happen. Right? He confronted someone who's watched someone die.
Holy shit! Is that real?
So this has been it's not.
Oh, that's the myth. Okay,
there is no truth to it. What he was talking about in this song was not about vengeance, or it was about his heartache, his pain. He had a very messy, very expensive. At the time, it was the biggest divorce settlement of all time. And I guess and it's funny, I did some research on this. The album that was his number one selling album was called No Jacket Required. And all the songs that made his career came out of the pain of that divorce. And a lot of the songs were aimed at trying to get his wife back. I thought that was very romantic. Now, I don't know if he wanted her back for the money or because he loved her or both, but I'm guessing it's for both.
Huh. That I have heard other musicians reveal when their album was just all about trying to make up with their significant other. Like, I recently listened to an episode of Song Exploder where they were like, Imagine Dragons, like this song that was very deep. It was just a letter of, reconciling with his wife. So that doesn't surprise me, but it does make sense why such a dramatic. I mean, like that's when I said that. It's not because I read the list. It's because I was like, In the Air Tonight is the only song I know right off the top of my head.
It's heavy. It's a heavy, darks.
I can see why you'd want to like invent a mythology to make it, to justify having such a heavy song in your album. So was that your number? That was your number 6?
I know. I cheated. I worked a couple in there. Those are half ones. Those ones don't count as full ones.
I'm gonna have to go and add in cheesy countdown, like top 10 countdown sound effects. Okay, I'm gonna do. Let's see. We'll do a couple more of these, and then we'll save our numbers 5 through 1 for the next episode. So I'm going to go with a couple of legal ones because I think they're very important. I wanted these to come out first because they honestly could save a life. So one of them is you have to wait 24 hours before filing a missing persons report. It is not true.
Really?
Yeah.
I watch all those murder documentaries. I could swear that was the truth.
And literally, cops will tell you that. There are cases. I've read about court cases for my PI exam thing where like cops have told people come back after a day, and it is not true. Most counties don't have that. Most police precincts don't have that in the books. The general rule of thumb is where there is evidence of violence or unusual behavior, you can start investigation promptly. But
isn't that the most valuable time? Is the first 24 hours? I mean,
it is, yeah.
Because that's where there's the most clues, it's fresh in people's minds, what they saw or who came into their store.
People are still in transit.
Who talked to them, what was said. You forget.
Yeah.
You forget what our conversation. We'll forget this conversation tomorrow, you and me, Joe.
Right, exactly. So in the first 24 hours, you can get people, accurate information. You can find people while they're fleeing. Like you can track down a car while it's still on the road. There is Britain is different, apparently. The British government now advises you don't have to wait 24 hours. And criminologists generally, according to this list, say that 72 hours is the most critical in finding a missing person. So, yeah, do not wait. You don't have to sit on your hands for 24 hours. And if you got to do two quick ones, my second half of this is another legal one, which is in those same murder documentaries and criminal justice shows and like Law and Order and things like that. Whenever somebody isn't read their Miranda rights properly, like when the lawyer's like, did the cop read him his rights? And if they didn't, they throw the case out. Dramatically, the judge is like, well, we can't try you.
I can't do anything.
Yeah,
my hands are tied.
Exactly. And the prosecutor's mad and throws a briefcase across the room. That's all bullshit. Apparently, if you aren't read your Miranda rights, it just means that anything you said during your interrogation is admissible. So, like, if they didn't read you your rights, anything you said can basically just be like, well, I didn't know that I wasn't supposed to talk, or that I had the option not to, or that I had I could get a lawyer. So it's just the interrogation. All the other evidence, you leaving the knife at the murder scene, the tire skid marks, the shovel, the lime, the burial hole, all that's still very good evidence against you. The Miranda rights don't matter. I'm speaking you directly, Todd. All that evidence we left, we're not going to get it thrown out because of the rights, the Miranda rights.
Yeah. That's when you know you have a good friend, when they help you bury the body.
Right, exactly.
Well, I got one. I got into some religious one, and I'm down to 7 and 6, and then I'm now. This is from the religion of Islam.
Okay.
The Quran does not promise martyrs 72 virgins in heaven. It doesn't.
Really?
It does mention virgin female companions to all people who margin, but there is no number specified.
Huh. What?
Didn't you think that was a true thing? We hear that all the time. Like, whoa, I might do something crazy for that. For those 72 virgins. That sounds great, right?
Robin Williams with his joke about 72 Virginians. Like that. I mean, I know that's been such a myth for so long that I assumed it must be right. And hearing that comedy bit turned it into correctness in my mind. But yeah, that's wild.
The fact that you mentioned Robin Williams, I brought this up to you the other day. We just see him as this just natural, gifted, funny guy. He was trained at the very exclusive, one of the best art schools in the world, Juilliard.
Right.
That surprised me, Joe. He just seems like a natural.
He seemed like a guy you would work with that was so funny. Somebody just told him one day, "Hey, you got to start doing this on stage." Like it. Yeah, there's a bunch of. I mean, we've talked about that. That can be a myth of itself, a misconception for this episode. You and I have talked about how many, like the surprising amount of people who went to Juilliard, and we give them the credit for being just naturally a genius and naturally that good. And come to find out, they are trained at the best school on earth for it.
I think that'd be a great episode.
Yeah, that would be a really good one. Was that your 6th one?
That's my 7th. I got one more. Do you want to go? Then I go.
Okay, we'll do our last 2. Mine's a pretty minor one. It's back into extremely niche science territory. When a meteor spacecraft enters the atmosphere, the heat of the entry is not caused by friction. I have thought my whole life that at high speeds air becomes sandpaper and that it will burn up a spaceship like in movies, like in Deep Impact and Armageddon, when stuff's falling through the atmosphere, it's catching fire. They literally say it's because of the friction of going through the atmosphere, and the air is basically sandpapering it until it's hot like a welder. It's not true. It's by the I'm going to butcher this word. Adiabatic compression of air. It's just air compression. It's the compression of air in front of the object at high speed is causing the heat, which I'm going to have to read more about that because that bends my mind. Like I don't know why that one stuck out to me. I don't know why I'm even ending on that one. I should have ended on something motivational like what we talked about with Juilliard, but
dun, 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 dun.
Mine's just air
End of the
compression.
world. You've been studying. You're working on something. End of the world podcast, End of the world stories, aren't you, Joe?
I am. Yeah, I'm slowly collecting up an archive of apocalypse stories that I want to break down. But yeah,
so that's in your subconscious. Things falling through the, you know what I mean? It ties in. I get you.
That's true.
I got you. I speak 2 languages fluently. I speak English and I speak Joe.
I appreciate
Joe
that.
Anthony.
You're the only one, by the way.
It took me 5 years to to be conversational in Joe Anthony.
That's a skill nobody else learns. So you. So what's your last one?
So
save us from my nerdiness.
Drum roll.
Yeah.
We're staying in religion. This is a shocking one. Drum roll, everybody. Judaism. They often show what is the fruit? I'll ask you this. You'll tell me. What is the fruit in the Garden of Eden?
Apples.
That eat. That's not true. The forbidden fruit mentioned in the book of Genesis is never identified as an apple. And it's depicted that way in Western art. Jewish scholars suggest that it probably was either grape, fig, or wheat.
What? Okay.
The original Hebrew text only mentioned tree and fruit. There's no apple. The apple is it's like a hallmark thing, right?
I'm mad at you for ruining that one because that's not dramatic enough for me. A grape, eating the forbidden grape isn't dramatic. That is a sad
or
slide
the wheat,
whistle.
right?
Yeah.
Chewing on some wheat. An apple's juicy. It kind of tastes like sin and sex, right? But wheat. Wheat's really dry. It's like an oyster cracker, you know. It's,
Yeah, there's no snake that's like, here, chew on this wheat for a while I whisper to you all the secrets you're not supposed to know. And that, by the way, that changes all of our symbolism. Like, apples have sort of like this high shelf they sit on for like storytelling, like, you know, the apple on the cover of the Twilight series, and, you know, apples in poetry and Milton's Paradise Lost and stuff. You've just destroyed all that by being like, here's a handful of wheat and some grapes. Like, go ahead, eat it. We don't care anymore. Well, that's that's gonna do it for our first part of common myths we are busting, and this is more just I'm afraid to say it. People who probably aren't shocked by this are just quietly listening to you and I prove that we are in fact boobs, and that we are just easily gullible by these common myths. Hopefully that's not the case. But
we just believe everything people tell us.
exactly.
Don't we? We just take it. We just accept it.
Yeah, unfortunately.
You've been listening to The Re-Engineered You. Thank you so much for listening to the show. You mean the world to us. We have a new episode every week.
You can connect with us at www.re-engineeredyou.com. That's where we have show notes, links, blog articles, and apparently you can read myths that we have busted that we actually know about instead of these ones.
We're not experts in anything, but we've got an opinion on everything.